Welcome to the Empowered to Connect podcast, where we come together to discuss a healing-centered approach to engagement and well-being for ourselves, our families, and our communities. I'm JD Wilson, and I am your host. And today on the show, we are talking about taking play seriously. And I will leave that in as an example of me not taking myself too seriously. We at ETC do believe very seriously in the power of play. One thing that we have noticed and come to really rely on in our parenting tools over the years is the ability of play to help bring regulation, to help divert erratic behaviors as they start, to be able to be used as a parenting tool in our tool belt, to have it as a way for us to build connection and attachment with our kids. And so we're going to talk today about the seriousness and the need to take play seriously in our parenting in the episode. It's very practical. It's also so helpful to know kind of the behind the scenes, so to speak, with our kids of how play can actually be used as a helpful tool in parenting. And so I hope today can be a helpful episode for you. Before we do get into the episode, though, I do want to remind you, or just kind of really let you know for the first time formally, we have spent the last several years literally rewriting the ETC parenting course and updating it with the latest research, and just basically creating a more robust resource for you to be able to go through and learn all about attachment-based, connection-based parenting. And so we are so excited to be able to offer Cultivate Connection as a parenting course coming up very soon. And so now one of the things we are doing is opening up Cultivate Connection facilitator training. If you are somebody that is already supporting parents, supporting families in your community, and you want to continue doing so, but be better equipped to do so, head to empoweredtoconnect.org, where you can apply to become a Cultivate Connection facilitator. You will find information on when our next training is. You will find information on what that training entails and information on how to apply, what the costs are, etc. I will say, just from personal experience as somebody who went through this training several years ago for our last parenting course, it is invaluable. I cannot understate the importance of just the resource of this training as a parent in a community where there are other families who may be needing this support that you could offer. So head to empoweredtoconnect.org today to become a Cultivate Connection facilitator. You can apply there and find out about all the next steps involved in becoming a facilitator for this training. Now, without any further ado, here are Jesse Ferris, Tana Ottinger, and myself talking about taking play seriously. Well, as we talked about in the opening today, we've got Tana Ottinger and Jesse Ferris with us here. And so we're going to talk today about taking play seriously. It's one of our connecting practices. And we've got the two play experts, the two authoritative play experts in the entire world here today.
Oh my gosh. Okay. As I bow off of this episode immediately, that's a lot of pressure.
Well, we did bring Jesse in today as someone who, like Tana, was also a part of working with and editing this curriculum. We wanted to have her perspective, and so Jesse, thanks for being here, and Tana, thanks for being here. And why don't we just start, Jesse, if you don't mind, just kind of giving us the overview of this connecting practice, and then we'll talk more practically about this. And obviously, this is one of our more practical conversations that we'll have about connecting practices with this today.
Sure. And I do want to set us all up by saying, I think JD is our play expert. So
I was thinking that too. I'm like, if somebody's going to win that title between the three of us, I think it might actually be JD.
For sure.
Now that my kids are out of the room.
Would say, right. Maybe you'd say Jesse and I have to work real hard at it, and then become a little more natural to you, JD.
Tana and I always appreciate how fun JD is.
Well,
so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, here at ETC, we say that we like to take play seriously, which might sound like an oxymoron to you guys, but we believe that play is a core element of a healthy, thriving adult-child relationship. And so taking play seriously for us means engaging in playful interactions with our children to build connection, to support growth, to redirect misbehavior. And then as we embrace play as a part of our rhythm and culture, we build that felt safety and disarm fear, foster joy, reap benefits for both the adults in our family and our children. So when we take it seriously, we're just being intentional about creating that culture of play.
And I think when we say take play seriously, it can sound like an oxymoron. It can sound clickbaity. It can sound like a gimmicky kind of thing to say. This is something that was, and they're joking about me being fun or whatever, but this is something that was real hard for me to learn, I think, as a parent, because I do love having fun. I do love playing and being silly and joking around all the time. And then when I want to just chill, I want to just chill. I do not want to play. So I would not, I think I would miss a bunch of moments because I wasn't thinking of play as a serious parent. Like if one of our kids came to me crying and sharing their heart in a moment, I'm engaged in the parent mode right away. I'm like, oh, this is a moment I've got to take seriously. I need to jump in with them. Doesn't matter if I'm tired, doesn't matter if I'm whatever. If I'm, and you can hear sirens in the background, sorry. If I'm in a moment where they're like, hey, will you come play Barbies with me? Or hey, will you come jump on the trampoline with me? And I don't want to, way easier for me to dismiss them and be like, no, y'all are good. Y'all go play by yourselves. Like, you're okay. And that is still a struggle that I have because I don't know at what age you stop enjoying jumping on the trampoline. Like I got a good 5 minutes of me or so, and then I'm just too old and start hurting. It just starts hurting the longer that you're on. But as I've started to see it as a tool for connecting, I think it almost feels like cheating then, right? Like it feels like you're getting away with something to get to go like build connection by, using funny voices and playing Barbies for, an hour or two. And so Tana, I know y'all have been through a lot of the same things. And I know that you and Mo both have like adapted a lot of your own, habits and practices at home about this. Why don't y'all tell us about that?
I mean, I think it's funny that you said you only have like 5 minutes of, on the trampoline when I'm like, I don't think I can get on it any longer. So like that also just kind of says something about the moment. I tell you what, I think thinking about play as a connecting practice really is one of my favorite things. Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of my favorite things because it was so unnatural for me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think the things that don't come naturally, when you have to like work really hard to be super intentional, you see the value in them in a way that maybe you would take for granted something that's like more naturally who you are. So I would just say that this is a learned practice of, 20 plus years of parenting and something I still have to remind myself to do. Like play is powerful and it doesn't, and I want to just maybe say at the top of this, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's silly. So when we started thinking about play for Mo and I, and then I know for you guys too, and a lot of, the Empowered to Connect community, we've kind of followed this idea of Dr. Stuart Brown that talks about play personalities. And it's kind of like love languages, which might be more familiar to some of our listeners. Like we all have a certain kind of way that we give and receive love. Well, there's also different ways that we need to play in order to be like thriving, well human beings. So like starting to think about that each one of our children play differently and that Mo and I play differently. And if we can start thinking about that, it like unlocked this whole way of like valuing and seeing our kids in a new kind of way. And we won't necessarily go through all of the play personalities on this episode. You can go and Google play personalities by Stuart Brown. You can look on some of our social media, website. When this episode drops around that week, there'll be some stuff about the play personalities. So we've posted some stuff about it, but I'll tell you kind of just a practical example. So one of the play personalities is the director. And that was my big epiphany of like, that is at the core who I am. I love to like create experiences and like help people navigate through them. So, imagine a week or two before Christmas at the Ottinger house, and it's time to do one of our holiday traditions, which is always to make gingerbread houses. I can promise you preparing them, buying them, setting it up, displaying this beautiful table, getting one for everybody, getting it all set up, and then standing around and walking and helping the children do that met like such a deep core need for me. But getting down and making one with the children wasn't necessarily what made me happy. So even understanding, like, I didn't have to feel bad that didn't bring me joy, but I was facilitating an opportunity for them to play. So knowing my own play personality and how to meet that need has been a game changer for the family. And what if my play personality like contradicts one of my kids or causes there to be some tension because I'm approaching them through the way I want to connect and play. And it might be like the exact opposite of what they need. So thinking about their play needs is a major epiphany. And Jesse, I know that's something we talk about a lot when we're like leading classes and stuff together. So what are your thoughts about like us and our kids, working together with our...
Well, I mean, I think I love thinking about it. Just this time when our kids are open to us. I mean, isn't that really happening when we're playing? Is that we're just open to experiences both ways. And so I would just say, even from the experience of like being, we're so used to trying to parent in the moment and taking care of things in the moment, but play happens outside of the moment, which I love. And that kind of layers along with some other connecting practices that we have. When I think about play personalities, it also just really opened up this idea for me of, oh, could I be missing one of my kids' bid for connection? Like we have another. I would consider myself probably one of my personality aspects being director, but I think we probably have another director in our family. And I would have thought, oh, well, that kid is trying to take away my power, take away my authority. Oh, that kid's not respecting me. But maybe that kid was just wanting to play, know? And how do I make space for her to play as a director? That just seeing it in that way, different behaviors as maybe a bid for connection in a playful way has made me think about behavior differently.
I love that, Jesse. One of the examples that Mo and I often give, because I think it was one of our big, massive epiphanies, was one of our kids is a collector, and that is how they like enjoy their whole world. And that is so opposite of who Mo and I are. Might be more like minimalist and do with little, and you don't have to have a lot of stuff. And like, I don't want clutter. And then you have this precious child that is like experiencing their entire world of joy is wrapped up in one more rock or this certain kind of, another feather or this collection or that collection. So beginning to see that as part of their wiring and the way that they are experiencing you and then supporting that is amazing. So I like that idea of like that bid for connection. So thinking about play as an opportunity to connect and build that foundation of trust and relationship that it will hold strong when the rough times come. Like play is so powerful to even thinking about, if you're not feeling super connected to your kid, or maybe there's some behavior that's going on that you're confused about or can't really figure out what's happening behind it, or it's repetitive and it's bugging you and you don't know what to do. Like just thinking about like slowing down and doing like 15 minutes of child-led play can like reset everything. And that's for older kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, college age students. I took one of our kiddos off to their college orientation, and it had been a long trip and we were on the way home, and I could just tell that like I think we were both kind of exhausted and we needed to talk about some things. And I don't think either one of us had a lot of energy to do that, but we needed to before we got home to the rest of the family. And I said, why don't you just tell me what you're listening to? And like they played their favorite song right now. And then I like did a throwback to mine. And we had about 30 minutes of like going back and forth on Spotify, just playfully. They're totally into music right now. And about 30 minutes later, you know what? Both of us were ready to talk. We were ready to sort of do that other kind of business that we needed to do that we didn't have the energy for before we got playful. It's just powerful. It is so powerful.
And I think, one thing that was really helpful
or two elements that are really helpful is thinking of play as a tool for regulation. Like thinking somebody's losing it and they don't want to go do X, Y, or Z thing. And it feels, especially if you grew up in a more traditional, kind of high structure environment, it feels wild to say, you're not wanting to clean your room right now? I tell you what, let's go jump on the trampoline for a few minutes. Like everything in my, high structure background screams like, you are a lunatic. Why would you do that? And yet, like, if you're thinking of it as a tool for regulation, like go get a quick, cheap connection builder where that kid's like, oh yes, that's all I want to do is play on the trampoline right now. And then while you're there, you can go, hey, I tell you what, this is awesome. Let's go do this some more after clean your room. You want me to walk you up there with you, or you want to go do it by yourself, knock it out real quick? I'm not saying it's a magic genie where all of a sudden it happens every time, but it can be another tool for you to use in those moments. And then it is, the music thing's a perfect example, Tana. Like it is a wildly helpful thing for us just to learn their personalities. And like it is another aspect of who they are. And so the collector thing can get super overblown really fast if you are a no clutter person, because then you're unknowingly attacking their character or attacking
like who they are.
Yeah.
How they experience delight is under attack at that moment.
We've got a director at our house too. And there are moments where we're like, hey, you are not in charge. And then remembering like, oh, well, and there are moments for that, obviously. But then a lot of times what we can do is we can then leverage that and be like, hey, I tell you what, our chore, because we have like a chore chart, and sometimes in the afternoons, like right before dinner, everybody will go do their zones. And the big kids are pretty good to go do it on their own. Our youngest, needs some help. And so we will then kind of tackle those together. And when we put her in charge of it, that begins to be a little bit more effective. Like you're almost just harnessing the wind, like you're taking the sail, and it pops right up because it's like, hey, tell me what needs to be cleaned up in this. Let's go do it together. And so they're, before they realize it, they're doing their chores happily without even thinking about it. So just some ways that can also, like in non-actual playing ways that can be leveraged, that are really helpful. I think most of us, if we're thinking about this from a physical developmental learning tool, growing tool, all that, like we can connect with that. Like, oh yeah, play is important. And we think about, running around outside or think about doing stuff that is physically active. Why don't we talk for a minute about ways that play cultivates growth in our kids, and just being aware of like all the different facets of growth that are happening because of play?
Well, I would say, just biologically, we're wired to learn through play. So when you see how babies and toddlers learn new skills and move along developmental stages, that's happening. When you think about a baby playing peekaboo, that child is learning object permanence, right? And it still happens, out on the playground in elementary school. Kids are learning I'm having problems with my words, guys. Socio-emotional.
See, words are overrated. We just need to play.
Right, just play. They're learning skills out there is what I'm trying to say.
Right. That's right.
They're learning how to share the swings. They're learning how to share friends. They're learning how to, what do you do when your friend wants to play one game, but your other friend wants to play another game? We're building skills and learning as we play. And I think also that we can use play to build skills. So I'm even thinking of, I've got a kiddo that is interested, like loves playing with kids, interested in babysitting. And so how do you scaffold the skill of babysitting when they're maybe a little bit too young to do that for other families? It like, let's harness that play personality and let them kind of learn how to build those skills using their play personality. So maybe a director gets to come up with some activities to play during the day with a younger sibling, or maybe a collector can get some neighborhood kids together and have a little like card swap or rock swap or whatever they like to do. There's all kinds of ways to teach kids the very next skill using a game or the way they like to play. I have a kid who is super playful in a lot of different ways. But she used to love treasure maps to clean her room. If I would make her a treasure map,
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
this leads to this, first you clean up all the clothes and then you clean up all the stuffed animals. And it was like one picture leads to another picture, and then X marks the spot at the bottom, which was, who knows, some little thing, some little treat or snack or time with mom. But I mean, all she needed was a treasure map because it was a game and it was fun. We can use games and playing all along the way with our kids.
We talk a lot about practicing outside the moment, right? To build those skills. And that really is using play to do that. So that's exactly what Jesse's talking about. Like how, if you're trying to get a kiddo to accomplish, X task or be able to grow in a certain way to get to a skill that they don't have yet, practicing outside the moment is a great way to do that. Or if you're, let's say you have a big trip coming up and you've got a kiddo that might struggle with transition or the unknown, thinking about how you can play and like play pretend and play that scenario out before it happens to just help them have the capacity to maybe manage that situation with a little bit more resilience and strength. I mean, this is why we have play therapists at Memphis Family Connection Center that are taking kiddos into that play therapy room and letting them express their experiences through play, because we know play is a healing thing. It heals us, it heals others. It's beautiful. And figuring out how to like just take a beat and maybe consider play as a pathway forward in whatever situation or circumstance you're in with your kid. It can be in a split second, or it can be something, that you're needing to think about and then sort of enter into intentionally. What role could play play in building skills and growth and healing? One of the things we talk about a lot around here is a wonderful and amazing quote by Dr. Karen Purvis that talks about play disarming fear. And I think this is one of the things that probably in our early years of like rethinking how we thought about play, I think this was probably the hook that got us, was how can we utilize this connected, playful engagement to support our kiddos that might be experiencing some stress, adversity, and fear. One of, I think, the most thoughtful examples for me that just comes up when I think about this is, Mo and I are parents through adoption, and several of our kiddos, we traveled to pick them up in their country. And, they were somewhere between the age of 2, 3, and they didn't speak English. And you are desperately wanting to start a foundation of connection with these, with your children, and you cannot speak to them. So you have a couple of things in your arsenal, and they are exactly your nonverbal body language, your posture, your tone, your facial expression, your movement, and play.
Yeah.
And I mean, we played it up. We were watching some videos just this last week. It was one of our kids' birthdays, and we were just looking at old pictures and videos of them. And we got to the videos of the first day that they were in our care in their country. And it was precious seeing Mo like sitting down crisscross applesauce on the floor playing teacup party. And you know what? Our baby couldn't speak a bit of English, but they knew how to pour daddy a cup of tea. And I bet Mo drank, 15 to 20 pretend cups of tea before that little playful session was over. And I think that when we can start communicating, we forget that play is still as powerful as it was before we could speak to each other with our words. So I love to just remember, like, play is the foundation of felt safety, connection, and relationship.
And if you think about that too, play is often this side-by-side activity or this activity that encourages eye contact and giving and receiving. Those are such hallmarks of attachment, right? So we're building in those things that are so healing and promote so much growth for our kids without even trying. It's, JD was saying it's like free therapy or, cheap. It's something that's very low cost to us to do, right? But to do a tea party with someone, you wouldn't really think that would build attachment. But I mean, they were probably looking at each other's faces
Oh,
and
it's
eyes.
precious. I got teary watching it again.
They're mirroring each other's activities. That's so great for the brain. And that translates even to teenagers. I mean, we were talking this morning about playing catch. That's like something where you're mirroring each other's behaviors. And it's, this behavior that's repetitive and involves motion and proprioceptive input. And you can have a conversation during it. So, I just love all of that. And I've even shared the example before of having when my child wouldn't talk to me, talking to my child's stuffed animal. She's fairly young, but being able to talk to the stuffed animal, and the stuffed animal would tell me things that maybe she might not say directly to me. Or, if you play puppets or play dolls, anything like that, you can communicate in a different kind of way.
I love that.
Think about using play to redirect also. Like there's a ton of examples of that. I mean, just even in, talking about the levels of engagement that we talk about, like at level 1, playful engagement. Oh, let's try that again. And if you've ever watched the Care and Purpose videos, which shameless plug you can do at youtube.com/empowered to connect. Karen is a big time playful redirection person and is the most Texas playful engagement person of all time. And so you hear lots of cowboy and all kind of stuff like, oh, let's try it again, cowboy, that kind of stuff. Do y'all have examples of those like that playful engagement, like level 1 type engagements that you use for redirections?
Well, I think, my goodness, it sure takes a hot minute to decide that it's okay to redirect maybe a misbehavior or something you want your child to stop doing and do it in a playful way. So I don't know about y'all or anyone listening, but that wasn't how I was parent. Well, my parents were precious, but that really wasn't part of what we did. And that sure wasn't what I was sort of told to do by this community in our early parenting. So when I say like it was a massive mindset shift for Mo and I promise you this nugget right here literally changed the entire culture of our family. It restored relationships. It brought me back joy. I was like, are you kidding me? I don't have to like come in big and strong and heavy when my very young child is simply needing a little bit of redirection. Like I can approach them in a kind, playful, humorous way, and we can keep going. And maybe they might actually learn what they should do instead. And maybe they might stop doing it. And maybe I won't lose my mind in the process. Like thinking that play and playful engagement could be used to correct behavior and redirect a child. I know this might not be like mind-blowing rocket science for some of you guys. It was a major mindset shift for me, a lot of years ago. It's awesome. And I love it. Jesse, I'm sure you've got a similar experience and probably some really great examples.
Oh, it definitely has been one of the bedrocks of the foundation of the way we parent. And I felt so thankful to just have been exposed to this just as we were beginning to be parents, because it really has been woven through the fabric, through the culture of our family, just this playful engagement. We are constantly encouraging families. That's what you return to over and over again, because we want it to be part of the way that our family interacts just in general. We want it to be part of our culture. And so if you think about like when you feel close to people, it's not when they're giving you a lecture. It's not when they're punishing you. It's when they're connecting with you, when they're playing with you, when you're having lighthearted moments. I mean, certainly I can have a heart to heart and feel close to someone, but those are the memories that we make as families, and that we remember fondly are all those moments of play. And so, redirecting, I've got this kind of story I tell when we facilitate Empowered to Connect courses. But I remember one of my children being kind of young, that age where it's easy to melt down. and she was struggling with the transition of leaving a restaurant. It was probably loud. It was probably, I remember it was late at night because it was dark. And so there's all kinds of things going on, right? And we're leaving and she's starting to melt down. And I felt very punitive in the moment. I felt like, snapping my fingers, being like, pull it together. This is no, don't embarrass me in front of all these people as we're leaving the restaurant. And I don't know, something about the moment, they had music playing and it had this beat. It was kind of a fun song. And instead of reprimanding my child for acting inappropriately, I started to dance. And this child loves movement. She loves to move her body. She loves music. And she saw me starting to dance and she started to copy me. And we had this long walk back to our car through a courtyard. And we danced all the way through that courtyard. We had so much fun. The other child in our family and my husband had gone on ahead. They were doing, they were leaving with no problems. And he had turned around and seen us and started to record us on video. And then the other child came running up because she wanted to be part of it. And the three of us were dancing back towards my husband, recording this moment. And every year it shows up on our time hop and we share it with each other and we all laugh. No one remembered. The kids do not remember why that moment started. They remember how it ended.
Great.
And it was so funny and fun to watch all of us doing our little silly dance moves together. And what could have been the meltdown on the way to the car instead is this memory we share with each other every year. And that's the way I want my redirection. And, every redirection can't go like that. But how many can I catch low and turn them into memories, that we remember in a fond way? I want to engage playfully like that when I can.
Jesse, you're making me think of an example. One of our kiddos, and I won't go too far into the whole surrounding scenario because it would take too long, but we were at a family camp with a lot of other families. One of our kids was not getting out of the swimming pool when the thunder was rolling off in the mountains. They couldn't hear it. And the lifeguard told them to get out. They're hearing impaired. They couldn't hear it. And they just kept on going up and down the slide. And I, trying to use my good, connecting practices, walked up to the side of the pool and got the kids' attention and gave them two choices that they could get out of the pool right now or their dad could come in to get them. And the child is one of our most playful kiddos and kind of gave a dad a little a little head nod, come on in, buddy. My husband was fully clothed in front of all these other parents, had to get in the swimming pool, get the child out. And, that was not our best correcting moment. But I knew I needed to reinforce the importance of the child listening whenever there was something dangerous going on. And they were pretty young. They have a lot of, they're super playful. They're silly. They like to learn that way. There's a lot of ability to playfully engage. I'll say this would not have worked for all of our kids.
Right.
Okay. You can't, what I'm about to tell you we did with this one would not have worked with probably any of our other children. So you've got to know your kids. Mm-hmm. But the next day, we came back to the same little swimming pool at this family camp. I talked to the lifeguard that was there the day before. Said kiddo went up and said, I'm, sorry I didn't get out. We kind of made amends. We worked that out. And then we practiced outside the moment. And he got in the pool and swam around, and the lifeguard played along and blew his whistle. And this kid saw him and came running and got out of the pool. All the parents and children there clapped and gave him high five. And it was like a big party because he got out when the lifeguard blew the whistle. And he wanted to keep doing that. And he did it 4, 5, 6 times.
Oh, that's great.
And then he remembered the next year, we had not said another word about it. The next year, we pull on to the little gravel road at the entrance of the family camp. And I hear my little pumpkin in the back say, Mom, I'll remember to get out of the pool this year.
Oh.
And there was no shame. It was it was connected. It wasn't shaming. There was no massive consequence or punishment, but we did reinforce a behavior for a kiddo through a lot of different reasons developmentally needed that sort of practice and playful engagement in order to make it stick in muscle motor memory and long-term retention. There's so many benefits to using play in moments of redirection and correction and helping our children know what we expect of them.
Well, and I think about in my own personal life, and this has become, I think, Jesse, like your story about the dancing, this has become kind of like a Wilson family lore story. And so I don't think it's out of bounds to share. I won't share who it was, but I have a shirt my wife just hates. She hates it so much. And it doesn't fit right. It looks goofy. It's that like end of the closet type of shirt, like, oh God, laundry isn't done yet. We haven't gotten all that done. So I've just got to wear this shirt. So I'm wearing that shirt, and she had rolled her eyes at me when I came downstairs, and like we were laughing about it. Well, later on, we have you talked about needing to know your kid's personality. We have some kids that are not their stress response is not fight at all, and we have one fighter, like one that just wants to scrap. And so once we kind of learned those different stress responses, it helps to then kind of know how to engage in different ways, whatever. And purely by accident, not on purpose, we got tangled up. I was trying to get out of their way, and they moved the wrong way, and just kind of like and just needing that deep input just like slammed into me and kind of grabbed me, and it ripped part of the pocket of the shirt. And it was one of those like kind of quick moments where like you hear the and everybody freezes. I mean, like a record scratch in a sitcom, like everybody freezes, and this kid looks up and was like, and I said, oh, thank you so much. Do you know your mom hates this shirt as much as she's hated anything in her entire life? And I was like, you know what we should do as like a gift for her? Why don't you just rip the fire out of the shirt right now? But and so like they grabbed the shirt and just kind of like yanked down like a little half rip. And I was like, oh, come on. That's pathetic. You can do better than that. But you got to put your back into it. Come on, put some muscle into it. Like we're pro wrestlers. Like this is a skit or something. Like, and then he comes back and just rips not just the pocket clear off, but the entire strip of fabric just comes flying off the shirt. So just my shirtless self underneath is just showing. And I was like, well, now the shirt doesn't match. So now we got to fix the other side too. And so grab a pencil and stick it in the other side and use it as a hole to then rip that side too. So all that's left are just the like my collar is still buttoned and the buttons down the middle, and it's just missing the sides completely. And now they're dying laughing because I'm like joking about
playing it up
in it, and I'm joking about recording podcasts in it, and like what are the audience going to think and all that. And so then about that time, and it was just one of those moments that just everything sort of fell together perfectly. My wife was coming around the corner, and she heard the commotion. And so she's coming elevated, like, why are they, I mean, he just got home from work. Why are they doing this? Why can't everybody just enjoy each other's company? And she comes from the corner and just starts dying laughing. And she said, what happened here? And this kid goes, Dad, do a little twirl for us. And so I like pretending I'm on the catwalk, and I was like, this is the latest fashion by the kid's name. And it's like talking about how we could market this to like, people for stress relievers, like shirts that are ready to be just torn into pieces. And so, and it just turned into a totally like playful, fun moment. Everybody's laughing. So then I took the shirt off and I was like, well, I think I've now got to sign this because it's like memorabilia now. So I autographed the shirt, and that kid has it on their kind of not their nightstand, but like on like a little like area in their part of the room as a reminder that we don't always have to take things so seriously, in their own words. And it is a great moment in history. It only came because I just had this awareness of play needing to disarm. And we were deep in conflict. That came about 30 minutes into just both of us beating our heads against the wall because we could not figure out how to disarm this argument that was happening. And it now became this massive moment. And so when we can, we try to use those moments. And it can backfire on you too, y'all. I've joked at the wrong moment and gotten stuff thrown at me by kids.
It doesn't always work.
But but just knowing that it can. And if you know your kids and trying things here and there, you can always repair, right? You can always say, I'm so sorry. I was trying to joke. I didn't mean that, you know? So yeah, it also can turn into like, you know, Mount Rushmore moments of family joy if it works.
I love that, JD. Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
I did too. I was just going to say, even just little things like, you know, I wish that my kids stopped every time I told them to stop. I have one that loves to just run ahead. I mean, just gets so excited and does not stop if I yell stop. But if I yell red light, she stops 100% of the time. Yeah. And so now we have red light, green light, yellow light, purple light, rainbow light. They all stand for different things. And it's, I mean, like she follows all those directions, but if she'll do it if we play. And you might argue and say, well, I don't want my kid to have to play to do what I say. I want them to just do what I say. Shouldn't they be obedient? And I think I would counter that with they're learning that. Right? We're all on a learning trajectory and they're learning that through playing. Tana, I remember when you told us that story in the pool, when I heard it the very first time, I thought, but how did that kid get in trouble for not obeying? What was his consequence? Right. What was like, because shouldn't something have happened? And I was very preoccupied with like, but did you talk to him? Like, but did he feel bad? Like, what would keep that from happening? And as I've heard you tell that story over the years,
and you know the kid, you know who they are.
And I've heard you tell this story over the years, and I've started living this practice through my family. You don't have to have the punitive thing happen.
No.
That was such a mind shift for me, you guys. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, I really am doubting that this would work, it would have to be punitive or something would have to happen as you know, to discourage the child from misbehaving again. I truly think you can redirect and teach skills through play.
I agree. And even the conversation that would happen in that moment, however old they are or whatever developmental level they are, you know, would be something like, hey, bud, I could tell that you were, you know, having a hard time getting out of the pool when it was time. And, you know, outside the moment is usually the time to have those conversations. And so there wasn't anything massively punitive. There was the next day, hey, love, we really want to let you go back to the pool. It's super important for you to listen to the lifeguard. And if they're telling you to get out, you don't know the situation, you've got to just get out. Yeah. And I know you can do that. That's the difference. It was a strengths-based approach to like seeing the kid could do it and telling them they were capable of doing that.
And knowing this kid, I mean, I can imagine what a joyful, fun thing it was to learn how, you know, with everyone cheering for them when they got out of the pool.
Every time they got out, it was like a dance party. Yes. They were dancing it and shaking their booty and cheering for themselves and jumping back in and let's do this again. And, you know, and this is my kiddo that would have a hard time remembering their aunt's name. Like there's some cognitive and developmental, you know, stuff going on there, but like cementing this. I mean, I think that's when I was really bought in. I'm like, I've been saying this, but 1 year later, when they remember it, when they have a hard time remembering things from yesterday, I am 100% convinced that play it gets to parts of our heart and mind and brain and body that nothing else can reach. And I will say it just brings joy back.
Yeah.
Yep. It is. Sometimes it's so hard for us to flip that switch as parents because we are mad or we are frustrated or tired or angry. And sometimes the heaviest lift is the one that flips the switch that allows you to move forward in a playful and soft and compassionate sort of engaging way. But if you can flip that switch, I promise you there's like undiscovered connection and delight and joy and freedom for you as a parent on the other side of flipping that switch and just finding your way through. We've all said it was one kid that we could do this with. It's so unique, which is why we started at the top with play personalities. Yeah. It's about being curious and discovering and practicing and committing to building a culture of play and then figuring it out.
But then you
You
have
know?
those rituals and touch points
Yeah.
with that child. JD's kid has that shirt, and every time they look at it, they think not of a struggle with dad, but that hilarious moment.
Right.
And, Tana's kid thinks of how fun it was to be successful at doing what they were asked to do when they didn't want to do it. And I don't
And
know.
your kids remember the dance party with mom.
Exactly. That it doesn't, it becomes easier to take a different way forward versus just, feeling like you're in that rut of always ending in a struggle.
I think what I like about this is we're not talking about permissive behavior. We're talking about building skills and setting boundaries that sort of help us have some joy and delight with one another, sort of like within those boundaries.
Yeah.
So I love that. It really is part of the whole connecting practice of balancing nurture and structure.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think, play's all nurture. Well, actually it's nurture and structure.
Yeah.
So, just make sure you're thinking about play as a holistic sort of way of engaging with your kiddo, both in the times when, things you feel ready to play, and maybe most importantly, in the times when there is some sort of disconnection or break in relationship where you're struggling to figure out how to move forward. And yeah, I don't think you'll be sorry.
I think it does require creativity and some thought, like you're saying, Tana. But if you can take that time and think about that skill that needs to be built, there's probably a game that could teach it, right?
Yep.
Even I had a competitor that hated losing, and we decided to make a game out of losing, that every time you lost, you actually won. The goal was to lose. Just
I love
think
that.
about it backwards. Think about that skill that's lacking, or that the interaction that went wrong that one time. And then think about, okay, what game can I play in the free time, or what books can we check out from the library, for our storytellers, or whatever else that will teach my kid in the way that they best learn.
I love it.
Well, guys, this has been great. Thank you. I think this was longer than any of us expected to talk about this today, and I think it was full of great examples and practical tools. And so, hopefully, for those of you listening, it was helpful. And for those of you asking, no, that shirt will never see the light of day again.
You won't model it for us?
Maybe if you got like a number of followers, would you post a picture?
I know, right? What if this
podcast on
I know, JD, hold on. What if literally we could say, like, when this particular episode gets shared 20 times,
right?
We have a shot of JD in the shirt.
Highly inappropriate. Highly inappropriate.
Your kids would really love that, though. They would.
Oh my gosh, we are at the age where they would super not love that. Actually, a picture of their dad on the internet like that. That would be very unfortunate. So we'll see. We'll see. Well, guys, thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. And we'll do it again soon. Well, hopefully for you, this was a helpful episode today. I know that for me, as I began first learning about this concept years ago, I'm a very playful person, as we point out in the conversation today. By nature, that is an easy thing for me to do with my friends. But it was hard for me to learn to take it seriously as a parent and to utilize it as a parenting tool. But it has been so helpful. So my hope would be that this is a practical, good episode for you today, that you took something away from it. I also hope that you will consider, if you are already a parent who is supporting other families, supporting parents around you in your community now, that you would consider becoming a Cultivate Connection facilitator. So again, if you are willing to take that leap, head to empoweredtoconnect.org. You can apply to become a facilitator now. Find out about the latest training that is coming up soon. And all of that you can find, again, at empoweredtoconnect.org. So for Kyle Wright, who edits and engineers all of our audio, for Tad Jewett, the creator of the music behind the Empowered to Connect podcast, and the whole team at ETC, I'm JD Wilson, and we will see you next week on the Empowered to Connect podcast.